When the mighty Zephyrian Empire declared war on Earth, they expected primitive humans to cower and surrender. Their vast fleets had conquered 17 star systems. Their warriors had never known defeat. Their king Vorthak the Merciless had crushed every species that dared oppose him. But humans don't just win wars, they redefine what victory means. What the Zephyrians discovered wasn't just human military might, but something far more terrifying: the human capacity for psychological warfare that would leave their entire civilization questioning everything they thought they knew about power, honor, and the very nature of conquest itself. This is the story of how humanity didn't just defeat the Zephyrian Empire, they broke it so completely that the mere mention of Earth still sends shivers through alien civilizations across the galaxy, 300 years later. Some victories are measured in ships destroyed. Others are measured in worlds conquered. But the greatest victories are measured in the enemy's willingness to never, ever challenge you again. Welcome to humanity's masterpiece of strategic humiliation. Admiral Elena Vasquez stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance, watching the massive alien fleet approach through the viewport. 300 ships filled the darkness of space like angry stars, each one larger than Earth's biggest dreadnoughts. The Zephyrian Empire had arrived, and they had not come to talk. "Ma'am, incoming transmission," Communications Officer Zhang reported, his voice steady despite the overwhelming odds they faced. "Put it through," Elena commanded, her dark eyes fixed on the enemy formation. The main screen flickered, revealing a creature that looked like a cross between a rhinoceros and a praying mantis. Standing nearly 3 meters tall, King Vorthak the Merciless wore ceremonial armor that gleamed with precious metals. His forearms gestured dramatically as he spoke, his mandibles clicking with each word. "Primitive humans," Vorthak's voice boomed through the bridge's speakers, the universal translator making his contempt crystal clear. "I am King Vorthak, ruler of 17 star systems, conqueror of the Deltari Confederacy, destroyer of the Plasma Collective. Your pathetic species has exactly 1 solar rotation to surrender unconditionally, or I will turn your blue world into cosmic dust." Elena stepped forward, her uniform crisp despite the tension filling the bridge. She had been preparing for this moment ever since the Zephyrians had destroyed the outer colony ships 3 months ago. "Your Majesty," she said, her voice carrying across the communication channel, "I am Admiral Elena Vasquez of the United Earth Space Force. We've received your ultimatum, and we have a counter-proposal." Vorthak's compound eyes glittered with amusement. "Counter-proposal? You dare negotiate with the Zephyrian Empire? We have conquered civilizations far more advanced than your primitive rock. What could you possibly offer that would interest us?" "A wager," Elena said simply. The bridge fell silent. Even her own crew turned to stare at their admiral. Lieutenant Morrison at the weapons console looked like he might faint. Elena had not discussed this strategy with anyone, not even her senior staff. Vorthak leaned forward on his throne, clearly intrigued. "A wager? Explain." "Single combat," Elena continued, her voice growing stronger. "Your best warrior against ours. Winner takes all. If we lose, Earth surrenders immediately and becomes part of your empire. If we win, you withdraw from this system and never return." The alien king's laughter filled the bridge, a sound like grinding metal. "Your species truly is more foolish than we believed. Very well, human. I accept your wager, though I almost feel guilty about such an easy victory. My champion, General Krex, has never been defeated in over 200 battles across 40 worlds. He will tear your warrior apart with his bear claws." "Excellent," Elena replied. "We'll meet on the asteroid field between our fleets in 6 hours. Neutral ground, no weapons except natural abilities and simple melee tools." "Oh, and, Your Majesty?" "What, human? When we win, there's one additional condition. You will surrender yourself as our prisoner for a period of time to be determined by Earth's leadership." Vorthak's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of extreme agitation that Elena had learned from studying Zephyrian behavior patterns. "You dare suggest that I, king of the Zephyrian Empire, would become a prisoner of primitives?" "Only if we win," Elena said calmly. "Which, according to you, is impossible. So what's the risk?" The alien king's pride was clearly wounded. Around him, his advisors chittered nervously, but Vorthak silenced them with a gesture. "Very well. I accept all terms. When your champion lies dead, you will remember that your arrogance led to your species' destruction." The transmission ended, and Elena turned to face her stunned bridge crew. Ma'am, Lieutenant Commander Sarachin ventured, who exactly is our champion going to be? Elena smiled, the first genuine smile she had managed in weeks. Get me a channel to Earth. We need to contact someone very specific. 6 hours later, the space between the two fleets had been transformed into an arena. The largest asteroid in the field had been hastily modified with atmospheric generators and gravity plating, creating a circular fighting space roughly 50 meters in diameter. Both fleets had positioned themselves at safe distances, their crews watching through cameras and sensors. General Krex stood at one end of the makeshift arena, and he was truly a terrifying sight. 3 meters tall and covered in natural armor plating, he possessed 6 arms that ended in razor-sharp claws. His species had evolved on a high-gravity world with deadly predators, and it showed. Muscles rippled beneath his carapace as he flexed his claws, leaving gouges in the metal flooring. At the other end of the arena stood humanity's champion, and he could not have looked more different. Marcus Thompson was 42 years old, stood only 1.8 meters tall, and weighed perhaps 80 kilograms. His brown hair was starting to go gray at the temples, and he wore simple combat fatigues with no armor. In his hands, he held 2 objects that had puzzled the Zephyrians, a length of rope and what appeared to be a small metal rod. This is your champion? Vorthak's voice echoed across the arena through speakers. A middle-aged human with rope? General Krex could tear him in half without effort. Elena's voice responded from the Defiance. Marcus Thompson, retired Navy SEAL, current instructor at the Advanced Combat Training Facility on Luna. He volunteered for this assignment. Marcus looked up at the cameras surrounding the arena and gave a small wave. Afternoon, folks. Beautiful day for a fight, isn't it? General Krex roared, a sound that shook the asteroid's temporary atmosphere. I will make this quick, small human. You will die with honor, at least. That's mighty kind of you, Marcus replied, beginning to loop the rope in his hands. I do appreciate good manners. The signal came, and General Krex charged. What happened next would be replayed in military academies across human space for the next 3 centuries. Marcus didn't try to meet the charge head-on. Instead, he waited until the last possible second, then dropped to one knee and swept the rope across Krex's path. The alien general's momentum carried him forward, but his legs tangled in the rope, sending him crashing to the arena floor. Before Krex could recover, Marcus was moving. The metal rod in his hand extended into a telescoping baton, and he struck precise points on the alien's anatomy, nerve clusters that he had studied from captured Zephyrian medical data. Krex roared in pain and swung his claws, but Marcus was no longer there. For the next 20 minutes, Marcus demonstrated exactly why humans had become the dominant species on a planet filled with creatures larger and stronger than themselves. He used the alien size and strength against him, turning every charge into a stumble, every swing into an opening. The rope became a tool of control, the baton a precision instrument for striking vulnerable points. The watching Zephyrians fell silent as their champion, their undefeated general, was systematically dismantled by a creature half his size. Marcus never once tried to match strength with strength. Instead, he used leverage, timing, and an intimate knowledge of anatomy to turn the fight into a technical demonstration. Finally, with General Krex entangled in rope and unable to rise, Marcus stood over him. Do you yield? He asked politely. Krex looked up at his conqueror with what might have been respect. I yield, small human. You fight with great cunning. Marcus nodded and extended his hand to help the alien general to his feet. Good fight, sir. You've got some impressive moves yourself. The silence stretched across both fleets for several long moments. Then, Elena's voice cut through the quiet. Your Majesty, I believe the terms of our wager are now in effect. King Vorthak's response was barely audible. Yes. The terms are in effect. Excellent. Please prepare to transfer to our custody. Oh, and, Your Majesty? What? Elena's voice carried a note of steel that hadn't been there before. I should mention that Mr. Thompson isn't even in our top 10 when it comes to hand-to-hand combat specialists. He volunteered because he thought the experience would be educational. The transmission ended, leaving the Zephyrian fleet in stunned silence. 3 hours later, King Vorthak materialized on the transport pad of the UES Defiance, accompanied by 2 of his advisors. The teleportation technology was superior to anything humans possessed, but the alien king seemed diminished somehow as he looked around the human ship. Elena was waiting for him in the transport bay, along with an honor guard of Marines. "Your Majesty, welcome aboard. I trust your accommodations will be adequate." Vorthak studied the humans surrounding him. They were all smaller than his species, yet there was something in their posture, their alertness, that gave him pause. "What happens now, Admiral?" "Now, Your Majesty, you're going to learn exactly why challenging humanity was the worst decision your empire ever made," Elena replied. "But, don't worry, the education will be quite thorough." As they escorted the alien king through the corridors of the Defiance, Elena's mind was already working on the next phase of the plan. Defeating Krex had been the easy part. What came next would either save humanity or doom it entirely, but Elena had learned long ago that sometimes the biggest risks led to the greatest victories. Behind them, Marcus Thompson was cleaning his equipment and whistling softly to himself. When asked later about the fight, he would simply say it had been good exercise. The Zephyrians would spend years trying to understand how a creature they considered primitive had defeated their greatest warrior with such apparent ease. They would learn, in time, that underestimating humans was a mistake that no species ever made twice. The quarters assigned to King Vorthak aboard the UES Defiance were luxurious by human standards, but they felt like a cage to the Zephyrian ruler. The walls were too close, the ceiling too low, and everything was built for creatures half his size. He stood at the viewport, staring out at his own fleet, knowing that they were waiting for orders that he could not give. A soft chime indicated someone at the door. "Enter," Vorthak called, his voice heavy with defeat. Admiral Vasquez stepped into the room, carrying a data tablet and wearing an expression that the alien king was beginning to recognize, polite, professional, but with an underlying steel that spoke of absolute determination. "Your Majesty, I hope you're settling in comfortably. I wanted to discuss the next phase of our arrangement." Vorthak turned from the viewport, his forearms crossing in a gesture that indicated resigned attention. "What educational experience have you prepared for me today, Admiral?" Elena set her tablet on the small table between them and activated a holographic display. "Today, we're going to show you something that no alien species has ever seen before, the complete tactical database of human warfare, from our earliest conflicts to our most recent innovations." The hologram flickered to life, showing ancient humans with spears facing woolly mammoths. "This is where we began, Your Majesty. Creatures weighing 8 tons, with tusks that could impale a dozen men, natural armor, and the strength to crush bones with a single step." Vorthak watched as the primitive humans used fire, coordinated attacks, and clever tactics to bring down the massive beasts. Impressive, but hardly relevant to space combat. "Oh, but it is," Elena replied, advancing the display. "You see, every species you've conquered had one thing in common: they were stronger than their prey. They evolved to be apex predators. Humans evolved to kill apex predators." The display shifted, showing human history in fast forward. Wars against creatures and tribes, the development of tools, the creation of weapons, the endless cycle of conflict that had shaped humanity's rise. Vorthak watched, his compound eyes tracking the progression from stone tools to bronze weapons to iron swords to gunpowder. "Your species developed space travel while still having a feudal society," Elena continued. "You conquered other worlds through superior technology and raw strength. But humans? We conquered our own world first. We fought everything on it, including ourselves, for 300,000 years." The display showed the great wars of human history, the clashes of empires, the strategic genius of commanders like Alexander, Hannibal, Napoleon, and Sun Tzu. Vorthak saw the evolution of human warfare, the constant adaptation, the relentless innovation driven by the simple fact that humans had always faced enemies stronger than themselves. "Every battle taught us something new," Elena explained. "Every defeat made us better. We learned that raw strength means nothing without tactics. That superior numbers mean nothing without coordination. That advanced technology means nothing without the will to use it effectively." The display shifted to more recent conflicts: the World Wars, Vietnam, the Middle Eastern campaigns, the urban pacification conflicts of the late 21st century. Vorthak watched humans fight in deserts, jungles, cities, and mountains. He saw them adapt to every terrain, every enemy, every situation. "Your General Krex was defeated by rope and a metal rod," Elena said quietly. "Do you know why?" "Explain." "Because humans have been using rope as a weapon for 40,000 years. We've strangled enemies with it, bound prisoners with it, pulled down city walls with it, and hung our criminals with it." "That metal rod?" We call it a baton, and police forces have used variations of it for centuries to control beings larger and stronger than themselves. Elena advanced the display one more time, showing the human space program. When we finally reached the stars, we didn't come as conquerors. We came as explorers, traders, diplomats. We made friends with 17 different species before you arrived. We shared technology, culture, art, and knowledge. Then, why, Vorthak asked, did you defeat us so easily? Elena smiled, and, for the first time, Vorthak saw something in her expression that chilled him to his core. Because, Your Majesty, we weren't trying to defeat you. We were studying you. The holographic display changed again, showing detailed anatomical charts of Zephyrian physiology, behavioral patterns, tactical doctrine, and command structure. We've been watching your empire for 3 years. We know how you fight, how you think, how you react under pressure. We know your strengths and your weaknesses better than you do. Vorthak stared at the data in horror. It was complete, every detail of Zephyrian military doctrine, every weakness in their armor, every psychological trigger that could be exploited. How did you gather this? Trade missions, Elena replied casually. Cultural exchanges. Diplomatic visits. We even had embedded observers with some of the species you conquered. They told us everything about your methods, your weaknesses, your arrogance. The alien king sank into the oversized chair that had been provided for him, the weight of realization crushing his spirit. You knew we were coming. We knew you would come eventually. Your pattern is always the same: you conquer the weak, absorb their resources, and move on to the next target. We've been preparing for you for 2 years. Elena leaned forward, her voice taking on a tone that was almost gentle. Your Majesty, let me tell you something that no one in your empire understands. Humans don't just fight wars. We design them. We plan them decades in advance. We study our potential enemies until we know them better than they know themselves. And, when we finally act, it's not a battle, it's an execution. She activated another display, showing the current disposition of both fleets. Right now, your 300 ships are surrounded by 2,000 human vessels. They've been cloaked and waiting for the past 6 hours. Your fleet's weapons are already targeted, your shields have been analyzed and countered, and your command structure has been mapped down to the individual officer level. Vorthak's mandibles clicked rapidly. Impossible. Our sensors would have detected such a force. Your sensors are excellent, Elena agreed. But, you've never faced an enemy that has spent 3 centuries perfecting the art of being invisible. We learned stealth from hunting mammoths in snowstorms and ambushing enemy armies in thick forests. When we applied those principles to space combat. She shrugged. Well, you can see the results. The alien king stared at the tactical display, watching as ship after ship decloaked around his fleet. They had been surrounded so completely that escape was impossible. Why haven't you attacked? Because we don't want to destroy your fleet, Your Majesty. We want to educate it. Elena stood and moved to the viewport, gesturing for Vorthak to join her. Outside, the human ships were moving into formation, their movements precise and coordinated. Watch carefully, Your Majesty. You're about to see something that no alien species has ever witnessed, a human military demonstration conducted specifically for educational purposes. The first ship to move was a destroyer-class vessel, barely a quarter the size of the smallest Zephyrian ship. It approached one of the alien cruisers at a leisurely pace, almost casually. When it was within weapons range, it opened fire. The energy beams that struck the Zephyrian ship were unlike anything in the alien arsenal. Instead of trying to overwhelm the shields with brute force, they pulsed in a specific frequency that caused the shield generators to resonate and overload. Within seconds, the massive cruiser was defenseless. Harmonic resonance, Elena explained calmly. We discovered the frequency that destabilizes your shield matrix about 18 months ago. Every ship in your fleet is now vulnerable to this technique. But, the human ship didn't destroy its target. Instead, it deployed a series of smaller craft that attached themselves to the cruiser's hull like parasites. Boarding pods, Elena continued. Each one contains a team of humans trained specifically in Zephyrian ship layout and combat techniques. They'll secure the bridge, engine room, and weapons systems within the next 10 minutes. Vorthak watched in horror as his ship's communications went dark. No distress calls, no reports of fighting, just silence. How? Non-lethal neural disruptors, Elena replied. Your crew is unconscious but unharmed. They'll wake up in a few hours with moderate headaches and complete confusion about what happened. Across the battlefield, the scene was repeating with methodical precision. Human ships approached Zephyrian vessels, disabled their shields with harmonic weapons, deployed boarding parties, and captured them intact. The entire engagement was conducted with the calm efficiency of a training exercise. Your Majesty, Elena said quietly, this isn't warfare as you understand it. This is pest control. Within 2 hours, the entire Zephyrian fleet had been captured without a single shot being fired in anger. No ships destroyed, no crew killed, no unnecessary violence. The aliens had been defeated so completely and efficiently that most of them didn't even realize they had been in a battle. Vorthak stared out at his captured fleet, his spirit broken. What happens to my people now? That depends entirely on your cooperation, Elena replied. We're going to send them back to your empire with a message. But, first, we need to make sure that message is received correctly. She activated her communicator. Bridge, signal all ships to begin Phase 2. Phase 2? Vorthak asked. Elena's smile returned, and, this time it was absolutely predatory. The education of the Zephyrian Empire begins now, Your Majesty. And, you're going to help us deliver the lesson personally. As Elena left the quarters, Vorthak remained at the viewport, watching as human engineers began modifying his ships for purposes he couldn't yet comprehend. For the first time in his long career as a conqueror, he began to understand that he had not encountered a military force, he had encountered a species that treated warfare as an art form. And, they were about to paint a masterpiece that would terrify the galaxy for generations to come. The transformation of the captured Zephyrian fleet took 3 days, and King Vorthak was forced to watch every moment of it. From his quarters aboard the Defiance, he observed as human engineering teams swarmed over his ships like ants, modifying systems and installing equipment whose purpose remained mysterious and deeply unsettling. On the morning of the 4th day, Admiral Vasquez visited him again, this time accompanied by a woman he hadn't seen before, elderly, with silver hair and eyes that seemed to see everything. Your Majesty, I'd like you to meet Dr. Sarah Mitchell, our chief xenopsychologist and architect of what we call the Reputation Protocol. Dr. Mitchell stepped forward and bowed slightly, a gesture of respect that somehow felt more threatening than any weapon. Your Majesty, it's an honor to meet you. I've spent the last 2 years studying your empire's psychological profile. Psychological profile? Vorthak's mandibles clicked nervously. Every species has cultural triggers, Dr. Mitchell explained, settling into a chair with the casual confidence of someone who held all the cards. Concepts that resonate so deeply in their collective consciousness that they shape behavior for generations. For humans, it's freedom, the idea that any individual can rise above their circumstances. For the Deltari, it was honor. For the Kretak, it was family lineage. She activated a holographic display that showed psychological assessments of various alien species. For Zephyrians, it's hierarchical dominance. Your entire civilization is built on the concept of the strong ruling the weak. It's why you've never been successfully resisted. Every species you've encountered accepts your superiority once you demonstrate greater strength. Vorthak studied the data, recognizing the truth in her analysis. Yes, this is the natural order. The strong lead, the weak follow. Exactly, Dr. Mitchell smiled. Which is why what we're going to do to you will be so psychologically devastating to your entire empire. Admiral Vasquez took over the explanation. Your Majesty, we're not going to kill you. We're not going to torture you. We're not even going to imprison you permanently. We're going to do something far worse, we're going to make you into a symbol of human superiority that will haunt your species for the next 1,000 years. She activated a new display showing the modified Zephyrian ships. Your fleet has been converted into a parade formation. Every ship has been equipped with human technology that makes it faster, stronger, and more efficient than before. Your crews are unharmed and will be allowed to return home. I don't understand, Vorthak said, though a cold dread was beginning to form in his mind. You will, Dr. Mitchell replied. Your Majesty, you're going to lead a victory parade through every system in the Zephyrian Empire. You'll visit every world, every space station, every military installation. And, at each stop, you'll personally demonstrate that humans are now your superiors. The full horror of the plan began to dawn on him. You want me to humiliate myself before my own people? Oh, it's much more sophisticated than that, Admiral Vasquez said. We want you to demonstrate a new reality. Your ships will arrive at each location flying human flags alongside Zephyrian ones. Your crew will be wearing modified uniforms that incorporate human insignia. And you, Your Majesty, will be giving speeches about the glorious alliance between our species. Dr. Mitchell leaned forward. The psychological impact will be devastating. Your people worship strength and dominance. When they see their king voluntarily subordinating himself to a species they considered primitive, it will shatter their fundamental worldview. Vorthak's voice was barely a whisper. You're asking me to destroy my own empire? No, Elena replied firmly. We're asking you to evolve it. The Zephyrian Empire as a conquering force ends today. But, the Zephyrian people can survive and, even thrive as part of a larger galactic community if they learn to see humans as their benevolent superiors rather than their enemies. She activated another display, showing economic and social projections. Think about it, Your Majesty. No more costly wars. No more resistance movements. No more rebellions. Instead, your people become junior partners in human expansion, valued for their strength and loyalty, protected by human military might. And, if I refuse? Dr. Mitchell's expression didn't change, but her voice carried a note of absolute certainty. Then, we implement Protocol 7. Which is? Admiral Vasquez answered. We release detailed recordings of your defeat to every species in the galaxy. Complete tactical analysis, full biometric data from your champion's loss, comprehensive intelligence files on Zephyrian military weaknesses. Within 6 months, every minor power in known space would be launching attacks on your empire, confident they could duplicate our success. The alien king stared at them in stunned silence. You would cause a galactic war? No, Your Majesty. Your pride would cause a galactic war. We're offering you a path to avoid that outcome. Dr. Mitchell stood and moved to the viewport, where the modified Zephyrian fleet hung in space like a constellation of surrendered pride. Human psychological warfare doesn't rely on fear or hatred, Your Majesty. It relies on inevitability. We make resistance seem not just futile, but illogical. Your people will see their king returning home victorious, leading a fleet enhanced with human technology, announcing a partnership that brings prosperity and security. They won't see defeat, they'll see evolution. Elena joined them at the viewport. The beauty of this approach is that it's completely voluntary. You can choose to be remembered as the king who saved his empire by recognizing superior strength, or as the king whose pride destroyed everything his people had built over centuries. Vorthak's reflection stared back at him from the reinforced transparent aluminum, and he barely recognized the creature he saw. 4 days ago, he had been the undisputed ruler of 17 systems, feared across the galaxy. Now he was a broken king contemplating the systematic humiliation of everything he represented. How long? He asked quietly. The parade will take 6 months, Dr. Mitchell replied. Every major population center, every military base, every government facility. By the time you return to your capital world, every Zephyrian in the Empire will have seen you demonstrate human superiority. And, afterward? Afterward, you remain king, Elena said. But, as a human client ruler, governing your people according to our guidance. Your empire becomes the first member of what we're calling the Terran Hegemony, a voluntary association of species that recognize human leadership. Vorthak's mandibles clicked slowly as he processed the full scope of what they were proposing. You're not conquering us. You're domesticating us. Exactly, Dr. Mitchell confirmed. And, the brilliant part is that your people will thank you for it. Within a generation, young Zephyrians will grow up believing that serving humans is the highest honor their species can achieve. The psychological manipulation was so elegant, so thorough, that Vorthak almost admired it despite being its primary victim. The humans hadn't just defeated his empire, they had created a system that would make resistance psychologically impossible for future generations. There is one additional element, Admiral Vasquez said, activating a final display. As part of the parade, you'll be making stops at every world the Zephyrian Empire has conquered. You'll personally apologize to each species for your aggression and announce their liberation under human protection. You want me to free my conquered territories? We want you to transfer them to human administration, Elena corrected. They'll be grateful to be rescued from Zephyrian oppression, and they'll see humans as liberators rather than conquerors. It's much more efficient than invasions. Vorthak stared at the strategic genius of it all. In 6 months, the humans would gain control of 17 star systems, dozens of subject species, and incalculable resources, all without firing a shot in anger. They would be hailed as liberators by the freed species and, as wise leaders by the Zephyrians themselves. Your species, he said slowly, is truly terrifying. Dr. Mitchell smiled. Your Majesty, you haven't seen anything yet. Wait until you meet our diplomats. Elena activated her communicator. All teams, prepare for departure. His Majesty has decided to cooperate with our educational program. Vorthak looked up in surprise. I haven't agreed to anything. Your Majesty, Elena replied gently, you agreed the moment you realized that cooperation was your species' only path to survival. Everything else is just details. As they left his quarters, Vorthak remained at the viewport, watching as his fleet prepared to become the instrument of his empire's transformation. The humans had shown him a choice that wasn't really a choice at all: evolve or face extinction. For the first time in his long life, King Vorthak the Merciless understood what it meant to be prey. And he was beginning to realize that the humans were the most sophisticated predators the galaxy had ever produced, not because they were the strongest, but because they made their prey grateful to be eaten. Tomorrow, he would begin the journey that would reshape the balance of power in the galaxy forever. And, by the time it was over, the name human would be spoken with the same reverence once reserved for the Zephyrian Empire itself. The parade began at Kepler Station, the outermost military outpost of the Zephyrian Empire. Admiral Vasquez had chosen it deliberately, a minor installation that could serve as a test run for the psychological operation that would reshape galactic politics. King Vorthak stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Dominion, watching the familiar stars of his empire appear on the viewscreen. But everything else was alien to him now. Human technicians worked alongside his crew, the ship's systems had been upgraded with technology he didn't understand, and, worst of all, the dual flags displayed on every external surface, Zephyrian and human, side by side, with the human emblem positioned slightly higher. Your Majesty, came a voice from behind him. He turned to see Commander Jennifer Park, the human officer assigned to oversee his cooperation. She was young, efficient, and possessed the same unsettling competence that seemed to characterize every human he had encountered. The station is acknowledging our approach. They're requesting standard identification protocols. Vorthak nodded, dreading what came next. Open a channel. The communication screen activated, revealing Station Commander Grix, one of Vorthak's most loyal officers. The Zephyrian's compound eyes widened in shock as he took in the scene, his king on the bridge, but surrounded by humans, with alien technology clearly visible in the background. My lord, Grix said, his voice heavy with confusion. We received reports of your fleet's disappearance. We feared the worst. Commander, Vorthak began, the words feeling like poison in his throat. I am returning to announce a new era for the Zephyrian Empire. We have entered into an alliance with humanity, an alliance that will bring prosperity and strength to all our people. The silence from Kepler Station stretched for long seconds. Finally, Grix spoke. An alliance, my lord? Yes, Vorthak continued, hating himself with every word. The humans have proven themselves worthy partners. Their technological superiority and strategic wisdom make them ideal allies for expanding our influence across the galaxy. Commander Park stepped forward, just enough to be visible in the transmission. Commander Grix, I am Jennifer Park of the United Earth Space Force. We're honored to be working with your people toward mutual prosperity. Grix's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of extreme agitation. My lord, what of our campaigns? Our expansion plans? Those plans have been superseded by our new partnership, Vorthak replied. We are hosting a gathering aboard the Dominion to celebrate this alliance. You and your senior staff are invited to attend. 2 hours later, Kepler Station's command staff materialized in the Dominion's conference room. What they found there would be recorded and transmitted throughout the Empire, the first visual evidence of their king's voluntary subordination to human authority. The conference table had been arranged with careful psychological precision. Vorthak sat at what appeared to be the head of the table, maintaining the appearance of leadership. But Admiral Vasquez sat to his immediate right, in the traditional position of a trusted advisor, while other human officials flanked the table at key positions. The seating arrangement suggested that the humans were honored guests rather than conquerors. Commander Grix and his staff entered the room with the wariness of soldiers walking into an ambush. They had been relieved of their weapons as a security precaution, but the humans maintained their sidearms, another subtle demonstration of who held real authority. Officers of Kepler Station, Vortak began, standing and gesturing to his guests. I present Admiral Elena Vasquez and her staff, our partners in this new alliance. Elena rose smoothly. Gentlemen, thank you for your service to the Empire. We look forward to working with warriors of your caliber in expanding human-Zephyrian cooperation throughout the galaxy. She activated a holographic display showing star charts of the surrounding systems. As part of our alliance, Earth will be providing advanced defensive technology for all Zephyrian installations. Kepler Station will be the first to receive these upgrades. The display showed technical specifications that made the assembled Zephyrians lean forward in amazement. Shield generators that were 50% more efficient than their current systems, weapon arrays with twice the range and 3 times the power, sensor networks that could detect cloaked ships at impossible distances. These improvements, Elena continued, represent humanity's investment in Zephyrian security. In return, we ask only for your expertise in military operations and your assistance in maintaining galactic peace. Commander Grix found his voice. These technologies, they surpass anything in our arsenal. Why would you share such advances with us? Dr. Mitchell, attending via hologram from Earth, answered the question. Because strong allies make everyone stronger, Commander. Humanity has learned that cooperation yields better results than conquest. Your people's natural warrior instincts, combined with human strategic innovation, create a partnership that benefits everyone. Vortak watched his officers absorbing this explanation. He could see their confusion transforming into something more dangerous: hope. The humans were offering them everything they had always wanted: superior technology, increased power, and continued military relevance. All they had to do was accept human leadership. My lord, Grix said carefully, what are the terms of this alliance? Admiral Vasquez answered before Vortak could speak. The terms are simple, Commander. Zephyrian forces will operate under human strategic guidance, ensuring that our combined military might is used efficiently and effectively. In return, your empire gains access to human technology, human protection, and a voice in galactic affairs. She paused, letting the implications sink in. Think of it as a merger rather than a conquest. Your people keep their culture, their traditions, their pride. But you gain the benefits of human innovation and the security that comes with human protection. Lieutenant Commander Kex, Grix's second in command, spoke up. What happens to species we have already conquered? The question hung in the air like a live grenade. This was the moment when the true scope of human ambition would become clear. Those species will be transferred to human administration, Elena replied calmly. They will be grateful for liberation from Zephyrian rule, and they will see humanity as their rescuers. It's a much more stable arrangement than governing through fear. Grix's eyes narrowed. You're asking us to give up our conquests? We're asking you to evolve beyond the need for conquests, Dr. Mitchell interjected from the hologram. Commander, what has your empire gained from ruling unwilling subjects? Constant rebellions, resource drain from occupation forces, the need to maintain brutal control systems. Wouldn't it be better to have willing allies instead of resentful slaves? Vortak watched as his officers struggled with the concept. For their entire careers, they had equated strength with domination. The idea that voluntary cooperation might be more effective than forced submission was foreign to their thinking. Your Majesty, Grix said finally, may I speak privately with my staff? Of course, Vortak replied. But, remember, Commander, this alliance represents the future of our empire. The decision to move forward has already been made at the highest levels. As the Zephyrian officers withdrew to a side room, Admiral Vasquez turned to Vortak. How do you think they're reacting? Vortak's mandibles clicked slowly. They're terrified and fascinated in equal measure. The technology you're offering exceeds their wildest dreams, but accepting it means acknowledging human superiority. And they'll accept, Vortak said with certainty. They're warriors, not philosophers. They'll rationalize it as a strategic alliance between equals, even though they know better. When the Zephyrian officers returned, Commander Grix spoke for the group. My lord, we pledge our loyalty to this new alliance. Kepler Station stands ready to serve the joint human-Zephyrian partnership. Elena smiled. Excellent. Installation of the new technology will begin immediately. Your staff will receive training on the new systems, and will be integrating human technical advisors into your command structure. As the meeting concluded, Vorthak noticed that none of his officers asked about the human flags flying alongside Zephyrian ones, or questioned why human personnel would be embedded in their operations. The lure of superior technology had made them willing to overlook the obvious signs of their subordination. That evening, as the Dominion prepared to depart for the next system, Vorthak stood alone in his quarters, reviewing the day's events. The first test had been a complete success. His officers had not just accepted human authority, they had embraced it. Commander Park entered, carrying her daily briefing materials. Your Majesty, will be arriving at the Nexus shipyards tomorrow. Admiral Vasquez wanted to discuss the presentation to the fleet commanders. Vorthak nodded wearily. How many stops remain on our tour? 47, Your Majesty. We've covered less than 5% of your empire. The magnitude of what lay ahead pressed down on him like the weight of a collapsing star. 47 more stations, planets, and facilities where he would systematically dismantle his own authority and hand it to the humans. Commander Park, he said quietly, may I ask you something? Of course, Your Majesty. Do your people take any satisfaction in this? In watching a conquered king parade his defeat before his own subjects? Park considered the question carefully. Your Majesty, we don't see this as your defeat. We see it as your species' graduation to a higher form of existence. You're moving beyond primitive conquest-based expansion to sophisticated cooperative development. It's actually quite an honor. Vorthak studied her expression, looking for signs of mockery or contempt, but found only genuine sincerity. That, perhaps, was the most terrifying thing of all. The humans actually believed they were helping him. As he prepared for sleep, Vorthak reflected on the day's success from the human perspective. They had gained another strategic outpost, recruited new allies, and advanced their influence without a single shot being fired. Tomorrow would bring more of the same, system by system, until the entire Zephyrian Empire had been peacefully absorbed into humanity's expanding sphere of control. The humans had not conquered his empire, they had convinced it to conquer itself. 6 months after the parade began, King Vorthak stood before the Grand Assembly of Zephyria Prime, the throne world of his empire. The massive amphitheater contained representatives from every world, every military installation, every significant population center that had witnessed his humiliation tour. But, as he looked out at the assembled thousands, he realized that what he saw in their eyes was not shame or anger, it was anticipation. Admiral Vasquez stood beside his throne, no longer even pretending that he held ultimate authority. The message was clear to everyone present: humanity now guided the Zephyrian Empire, and Vorthak was merely their chosen instrument. Citizens of the Empire, Vorthak began, his voice carrying across the vast space. 6 months ago, I departed these worlds to confront what we believed to be a primitive threat to our expansion. I return to you now with a far greater understanding of our place in the galaxy. He paused, looking down at the speech that Dr. Mitchell's team had crafted for him. Every word had been chosen for maximum psychological impact. Humanity has shown us something that we, in our pride, had never considered: the difference between strength and wisdom. We conquered 17 systems through force, but humans have shown us how to build something far greater, a true galactic civilization based on cooperation rather than domination. The assembly listened in rapt silence. These were many of the same beings who, 6 months ago, would have cheered for the total annihilation of humanity. Now they hung on every word of their king's praise for human superiority. Admiral Vasquez stepped forward. People of Zephyria, I stand before you not as a conqueror, but as a partner. Over the past months, your king has demonstrated wisdom that we rarely see in leaders across the galaxy. He recognized that true strength comes from knowing when to evolve, when to grow beyond old limitations. She activated a massive holographic display that showed the economic and military statistics of the past 6 months. The numbers were staggering: productivity up 40%, military efficiency increased by 60%, and territorial security at levels never before achieved in Zephyrian history. Every world that has joined the Human-Zephyrian Alliance has seen dramatic improvements in quality of life, defensive capability, and economic prosperity. Your king didn't lead you into defeat, he led you into the most successful period in your empire's history. Dr. Mitchell's voice joined the presentation via hologram from Earth. The psychological transformation we're witnessing here represents evolution in action. A species recognizing that their previous methods, while successful for a time, had reached their natural limits. By embracing human guidance, the the Zephyrian people have transcended those limits. In the audience, Vortak could see the faces of his former generals, admirals, and planetary governors. These were beings who had once commanded fleets and ruled worlds through fear and force. Now they nodded along with presentations about cooperation and mutual benefit. General Krex himself stood to address the assembly. The warrior who had been defeated by Marcus Thompson in single combat now wore a uniform that incorporated both Zephyrian and human insignia. "My king," Krex announced, "I speak for the military forces of this empire when I say that serving alongside human advisors has made us stronger than we ever were before. Their tactical innovations and strategic thinking have elevated our capabilities beyond anything we previously imagined possible." The general activated a tactical display showing recent joint operations. In the past 6 months, human Zephyrian forces have prevented 4 potential conflicts through diplomatic intervention, resolved 17 territorial disputes without bloodshed, and established peaceful contact with 6 previously unknown species. Krex paused, his compound eyes fixing on his king. "Your Majesty, you did not surrender to humanity. You forged the most powerful alliance in galactic history." Vortak watched in fascination as his own people applauded these achievements. The humans had accomplished something remarkable. They had made their conquest feel like liberation even to the conquered. His subjects genuinely believed they were better off under human guidance. Commander Park approached the throne and handed Vortak a document that represented the final phase of the human plan. "Your Majesty, the Terran Hegemony Accords are ready for your signature." The accords were elegant in their simplicity. The Zephyrian Empire would become a founding member of the Terran hegemony, maintaining internal autonomy while accepting human authority in matters of foreign policy, military strategy, and interspecies relations. It was a velvet glove wrapped around an iron fist, and every Zephyrian in the assembly would sign it willingly. "Before I sign these accords," Vortak announced, "I want to address the question that some of you may be asking, whether this alliance represents abandonment of Zephyrian values and traditions." He gestured to the human officials surrounding him. "These beings have not asked us to change our culture or forget our heritage. They have asked us only to apply our natural strengths in service of a greater purpose. Zephyrian warriors still guard the frontier, but now we protect all peaceful species rather than conquering them. Zephyrian administrators still govern our worlds, but now we focus on prosperity rather than exploitation." Admiral Vasquez stepped forward again. "The beauty of the hegemony model is that each species contributes what it does best. Zephyrians excel at military operations and territorial management. Humans specialize in diplomatic coordination and technological innovation. Together, we create something neither species could achieve alone." The vote, when it came, was unanimous. Every representative, from the highest military commander to the most remote planetary governor, voted to join the Terran hegemony. The humans had achieved something unprecedented in galactic history, the voluntary surrender of an entire empire. As the ceremony concluded, Vortak found himself alone with Admiral Vasquez in the royal chambers that had once been the center of his absolute authority. Human technicians had upgraded the communications systems, improved the security protocols, and enhanced the environmental controls. Even his private quarters had been made more comfortable through human innovation. "Admiral," Vortak said quietly, "I understand now what your species has accomplished here. It's not conquest in any traditional sense. No, Your Majesty, it isn't. What would you call it?" Vortak moved to the great window that overlooked his capital city. Below, Zephyrian citizens went about their daily lives with an energy and optimism he had rarely seen before. The introduction of human technology and administrative methods had genuinely improved their quality of life. "Domestication," he said finally. "You've turned us into pets who think they're partners." Elena joined him at the window. "Your Majesty, is that necessarily a bad thing? Your people are healthier, safer, and more prosperous than they've ever been. They have purpose, direction, and the satisfaction of contributing to something larger than themselves. And you have 17 systems worth of resources, military assets, and strategic territory without firing a shot." "Yes," Elena agreed. "And, in a generation, young Zephyrians will grow up believing that serving humanity is the highest honor their species can achieve. They'll be proud of their role in the hegemony, and they'll view independence as a primitive concept that their ancestors abandoned for something better." Vortak's mandibles clicked slowly. "Your species is remarkable, Admiral. You don't just defeat your enemies, you make them grateful to lose. Elena smiled. Your Majesty, we prefer to think that we help our enemies realize they never needed to be enemies in the first place. That evening, as news of the Zephyrian Empire's integration into the Terran hegemony spread throughout the galaxy, the reactions were swift and predictable. 12 different species immediately sent diplomatic missions to Earth, requesting audiences to discuss mutually beneficial partnerships. 3 others began internal debates about the wisdom of maintaining independent foreign policies when cooperation with humanity offered such obvious advantages. Dr. Mitchell, observing from Earth, noted in her report to the Terran Council that the Zephyrian model could be applied to virtually any spacefaring species. The key was understanding each culture's psychological triggers and crafting an approach that made submission feel like elevation. 6 months later, the former Zephyrian Empire hosted the first interspecies cooperation conference under Terran hegemony auspices. Representatives from 47 species attended, and 31 left with preliminary partnership agreements. Marcus Thompson, the retired Navy SEAL who had defeated General Krex in single combat, was invited as a guest of honor. When asked about his role in humanity's greatest diplomatic triumph, he simply said it had been good exercise. And King Vorthak the Merciless, now bearing the title of Regional Administrator for Zephyrian territories, gave the opening address about the benefits of recognizing superior wisdom when it was offered in friendship. The galaxy had been changed forever, not through fire and destruction, but through the simple human understanding that the strongest weapon was often a willing ally rather than a defeated enemy. Humanity had not just won a war, they had redefined what victory looked like in an age where true power came not from the ability to destroy, but from the ability to inspire others to surrender their independence voluntarily. The age of the Terran hegemony had begun, and it would endure for 1,000 years, built on the foundation of species who had chosen to kneel before human superiority and discovered that their submission had elevated them far beyond anything they could have achieved on their own. In the end, the humans had given the galaxy exactly what it needed, masters wise enough to make slavery feel like salvation.